Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I want to first apologize for the fact that I have been off of YouTube for quite a while, but today I was inspired to talk to you about court cards. So let's dive in. If you're interested in tarot, this might be a helpful video for you. I say that because court cards seem to be the hardest cards for people to understand. I get that. And why that is and what that's about is something we can talk about a little bit, which is that because we've been given different ideas about what the court cards are. And I think that the best in terms of, and I'll run by some of those in a minute, but I think I want to just start by saying the best way I think to learn court cards is to decide for yourself what avenue you're going to take with the court cards. In other words, are you going to go and read court cards based on very traditional ideas of what they were? Rider-Waite deck, if you're using that, which is a very, not the oldest deck, but certainly the most popular in terms of a classic deck, where many decks have taken off from that idea, from those ideas. So basically in that deck, traditionally, Rider-Waite, if you look up how that was interpreted, it was really interpreting very literal. In other words, if somebody pulled a court card, let's say the King of Wands, that meant that you would be meeting somebody or knowing somebody with red hair, that kind of idea. And in more modern times, we've gotten away from that. We don't take that so literal anymore. You can, though. You can choose to do that. In the 70s, when I was learning how to read tarot, in the 80s, the idea of what was traditional changed a bit. And court cards became more about who are we in the cards. In other words, what is true about our personalities, or still somebody we know. So depending on where the court card fell in a spread, the King of Swords, let's say, might depict somebody's husband who's there for the reading, and or that kind of thing. Again, a little bit literal in terms of the king being a man, the queen being a woman, that kind of thing. In my studies, I came up with what I felt was right for me. And this is why I'm actually giving you permission. You don't need my permission, but I'm giving you permission to find your way through the court cards. So let me tell you, and you can do that. Let me just interrupt myself by saying you can do that by studying different books, different things on the web, in terms of figuring out what other people are saying about court cards, and then figure out for yourself which attributes you're going to take. What do you like? What resonates with you about how you're going to interpret the court cards? I'm not sure if I said this before in other videos, but what's most important when you're reading tarot in terms of being integral with what you have to say is to be consistent. Sure, cards can change face. Eventually, you have to trust that. But if you are consistent with how you read the cards, how you read court cards based on your preference, then it'll work out. That I can say, I can promise you that. So here's my tip. Here's how I read the court cards. I really believe that we have male and female principles in us. So when I pull a king, I don't just see that it has to be a man. I can pull a king for a woman, but I read the king and the queen in an archetypal kind of way. In other words, queens, female, the female attribute, right? Nurturing, compassionate, a caregiver, perhaps. Men, men, the iconic kind of male. And I'm just giving some very brief ideas about what that is. If a king is pulled, they're at the top, the top of their game, right? A certain kind of confidence, a way that they have about being in the world. And then I've studied, the suits pretty well. And so I twist this idea of male and female with the suit, depending on what suit comes up. And so studying the suits, understanding what swords really means or wands really means, or Pentacles and also Cups. All of that will help you to, maybe if you decide to use this method, will help you to understand more the king and queen. So again, I'm not literal about the king having to be a man and the queen having to be female, and that's always worked for me. When I look at the knights, I have always seen the knights as messengers, and I studied this so long ago, I can't tell you why I came up with that, but there was something in my study that made me believe or feel like that felt right to me. And so when a knight comes up, it's the message of the cups, or the message of a sword, or the message of a wand, or the message of pentacles. The pages to me have always been our younger self. I do not read any of the court cards based on somebody else who's not sitting at the reading. In other words, I've never said to somebody who comes to me, oh, that page is your child, or unless I will preface this, unless somebody has specifically given me permission to talk about their child. And then, yes, a page can come up, because I do see pages as young energy, and therefore it is possible that it could be about someone's child. But mostly, I'd say 85-90% of the time, when a page comes up in somebody's reading, it's about their child, them and their childness. In other words, we all keep our child in us always. It just comes through life. We never really ever, none of us, I don't even care. I'm 66. I don't care how old I get. My childhood, who I was as a child, can still affect me, will still affect me. And so those messages, again, based on the whether it's a wand or a knight, based on the suit, will also help me to understand, well, what is this child telling you in this moment in a reading? What is your child needing to understand? What are you needing to understand about the child in you? That's how I read the court cards. Let me end by saying that in more modern decks, and many of you already know this, in more modern decks, we have really moved away from, many decks have moved away from the traditional idea of, king, queen, knight, pages. And so really, to understand those decks, you'll have to read their keys to try to get more of a flavor for how they're seeing the court cards. But remember that court cards really are about our personalities. That's how I see it. And maybe after today listening to this, you'll be inspired to review court cards, be patient with them, how they affect a reading, how they affect your readings, how they affect you is really the most important thing, is to trust what you feel about them, what you want to understand about them. And again, to do that, I would say grab from many different sources until you feel comfortable with the court cards. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love for you to read. Sorry for you to leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear more from you. And if there are any topics you'd like me to cover, feel free to let me know. Thanks for stopping by. Take care.